It was very strange because, as you know, white people don't look like me. And I want you to imagine what a white person looks like to an African in the 1800s, an African who has never seen a white person, ever. When you see the person, now remember, in our culture, we have, what are they called? We have people who have this skin disease. I forget what it's called. But anyway, we have people who have this skin disease in which they are completely white. And they were cast most of the time, and they were strange objects. They were to be used for witchcraft. They were so, in other words, it was said they are born without skin. So it's not like we had never seen people with white skin, is that we associated lack of melanin, lack of black skin, to be without skin. So here are people getting off these ships, coming upland, up country, and they have no skin and they are not sick. They have blue eyes, they have yellow hair, red hair, all these things. And just as it was prophesied, they had these sticks. Boom. They would shoot and kill. We had not seen such things, at least in that part of Africa. Then, in the due course of time, they built a railway that stretched from our coast to the borders of our country. And then they were riding in bicycles and motorcycles, and whoa! So, now when these prophets of Africa began to see, these shamans began to see ahead of time what was going to happen to our people, the tragedies that will happen, the loss of culture, the diseases that would come, the death, the moral decay. They announced it long before. They announced it. Okay? So this idea that people have, oh, you know, we came to take you out of the darkness. There is definitely some truth to that with any culture. Just like I myself am here to take you out of some darkness. That doesn't mean that you are primitive. It just means there's something I know that you might not know. Right? There's something that I know that might benefit you. So in that way, I'm going to bring you light. But that doesn't mean I'm primitive or I'm a savage. But anyway, that's how it was framed. And many of you know this, the dark planet and the dark continent and so on and so forth. And these people who are not really humans who can be enslaved and so on and so forth. And I'm talking about these things because these kind of things have really and are really making it extremely difficult to preach the gospel today in Africa. Because the people who brought the gospel to Africa, they had very ill agendas. They did not come purely for the gospel. They came to steal land, they came to subjugate people, they came to oppress people. And so now we have relatives who are now very educated, who are sitting there saying, we were not stupid, we were not backward, we just did not have the same type of perspectives as them. And so now, many people, I have a particular relative of mine whose my heart is breaking for, because they will not listen to anything that the Bible has to say because they associate the Bible with colonialism, with racism, with white oppression. And if you are white, please don't think that I'm trying to attack you in any way. I'm just helping you to understand the issues that are happening. Right now, there is a rise in many cultures of the world of going back to the traditional cultures and saying, we don't want the white man's religion. Because the white man came first of all and by force caused us to think that we were useless, pointless, without any direction. And so we had to abandon everything we believe. So now young people in droves, at least in my country, are going back to the traditional religion and abandoning Christianity to the face. Why? Because of the evils that were perpetrated by these missionaries and settlers. And the evils that continue to be perpetrated by world giants such as America and Britain and France whenever they go into these nations. The murders and just the moral decay that takes place. So, but here is a point. what I want to communicate here. We had our own culture. We had our own language. We had our own ways of communicating. And if you came to my culture and you learned my language and you could speak my language, which was good, then you translated my statements into your language. That in and of itself would not guarantee you that you would be understanding what we are saying, because direct translation is most often loss of translation, loss of meaning. So now, the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, were communicated not in English, but in the original languages of the peoples who interacted with this God who claimed to be the only true God. This God who claimed to create the whole universe. He communicated to them in their language, in their idioms, in their figures of speech, in their protocols of language. He communicated to them. They communicated with each other about what they heard, what they understood in their language, in their culture, within their context. Now, can you see? Now, I want to bring you to why did I bring up the whole issue of missionaries in Africa and the damage they brought into Africa and even the damage they caused to the world? Because they came with an agenda. They translated the words in the Bible into their, not only into their English language, but they interpreted the things in the Bible to favor their evil agendas for the most part. And they used the Bible as a tool of colonialism. A thing that the God of the Bible had no idea about, no such thing. The Israelites were not using it for that reason. Right? Now, and this is the gospel that is believed in the majority of the world. The gospel according to the West. Not the gospel according to the original people who had the message and what they meant in their expressions. So that today, when people hear, oh, there's going to be a blood moon on September 7th and 8th, you immediately interpret it according to Western scientific notions. You don't go back and say, what did Isaiah mean in that historical context? What did Jeremiah mean? What did Ezekiel? Why are they all writing in the same idioms, in the same expressions? What do they mean? Do they see the world the way we see? Do they have telescopes? Do they understand space the way we understand it? Do they even know what the moon is? Do they know that the sun is a star? No, they don't. Those are things from the age of enlightenment in the 18th century. So the first time that the word planet comes into usage anywhere in the world is in the 1600s, Chalmers. The first time that anyone has a clear idea of planets and stars is in the 17th century. So what we understand about moon, sun, stars is very modern. It is not the view that Moses had. It is not the view that Paul had. It is definitely not the view that Jesus had. They had a different perspective to it. They understood it completely different. So if we mean to understand their message and to be faithful to their message, we will need to step out of our shoes and we will need to step into their shoes and we will need to walk many miles with them before we begin even to grasp what they are talking about. You understand? Majority of what is being believed in today in Christianity is utterly divorced from what the prophets and the apostles are speaking about. That is why people are waiting anxiously for Jesus to literally appear in the physical clouds with physical trumpets on physical white horses mostly a white Jesus with white angels. Please don't get offended. But the Jesus that the majority of the world is waiting for is a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus on white horses with white angels, no black people, no brown people in that congregation of the saints coming from heaven. Because it's a racial Jesus. It's a European Jesus. It's a Caucasian Jesus. It is not the Jesus of the Bible. And it is not the Jesus of the apostles or of Jesus himself. Because the Jesus of the Bible is not coming in the physical sky. He's not coming on physical horses. Because those were figures of speech, they were symbols, it was apocalyptic language that meant something in their culture. Meant something in their culture. Meant something in their language. And they speak quite clearly about when this blood moon was to take place. The specific blood moon that had to do with Jerusalem. It's not the annual blood moons that take place or the every 2 years in Jerusalem. It was a specific covenantal blood moon that was not going to be in the physical sky, but rather it was going to happen within Israel itself. Joel chapter number 2 will give you this blood moon and what it has to do. So look at this. Joel chapter number 2. This is what Peter is quoting on the day of Pentecost. He says, blow a trumpet in Zion. Sound an alarm on my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land, notice how specific it is. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming, it is near. A day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness. Verse 3. Well, not verse 3 yet. Like blackness there is spread upon the mountains a great and powerful people. Jerusalem is about to be attacked by a great and powerful people. Their like has never been seen before, nor will again after them through the years of all generations. So there are generations after this event. Fire devours before them, and behind them a flame burns. The land of Israel is like the Garden of Eden before them, but behind them a desolate wilderness, and nothing escapes them. Their appearance is like the appearance of horses, and like war horses they run. As with the rumbling of chariots they leap on the tops of mountains. Like the crackling of a flame of fire devouring the stubble, like a powerful army drawn up for battle. Before them the peoples of Zion, the peoples of Israel, are in anguish. All faces grow pale. Like warriors they charge, like soldiers they scale the wall of Jerusalem. They march each on his way. They do not swerve from their paths. They do not jostle one another. Each one marches in his path. They pass through the weapons and are not halted. They leap upon the city, which the city, not a city, the city of Zion. They run up the walls, they climb into houses, they enter through the windows like a thief. There is where Jesus is getting his expression that he's coming like a thief in the night. Why is he coming like a thief in the night? Because the sun has been turned to darkness. The moon is not giving its light. The stars are fallen. So it's total darkness in this nation, not physically. Spiritually speaking, covenantally speaking, they have no direction from God. They have no real prophets because they have ignored the true prophets. So now they're in total darkness. That's when they get attacked by this other nation. So when he's talking about this, and then he continues. You have to read it in its context. He continues, the earth quakes before them. Who is the them? The them is the army that is coming to attack Zion. The army with horses, chariots. The earth quakes before them. The heavens tremble. The sun and the moon are darkened. The stars withdraw their shining. The Lord utters his voice before his army. For his camp is exceeding great. He who executes the word of the Lord is powerful. For the day of the Lord is great and very awesome. Who can endure it? So now, when you go to the end of this passage, because He tells them what they can do to avoid it. Maybe I should not even skip that. So he tells them all that. Then he says to them, yet even now. So immediately he tells them, who can endure this day that's coming? So what can we do? What can we do? Yet even now, declares the Lord, return, repent. Return to me with all your heart, with fasting, with weeping, with mourning. Rend your hearts, not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, and he relents over disaster. Who knows whether he will not return and relent? Leave a blessing behind instead, a grain offering and a drink offering for the Lord your God. Blow the trumpet in Zion, consecrate a fast, call a solemn assembly, gather the people of Israel, consecrate the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children, even the nursing infants. Let the bridegroom leave his room, let the bride leave her chamber between the vestibule and the altar. This is the temple in Jerusalem. Let the priests, Aaronic priests, and the ministers, that is the ministers of the Lord, weep and say, spare your people, O Lord. Make not your heritage, Jacob, a reproach, a byword among the nations. Why should they say among the peoples, where is their God? So, now I'm going to skip over here to verse number 28. So after he tells them all these things that they can do so that they will not suffer this great day in Zion, right? You shall know that I'm in the midst of Israel, and that I'm the Lord your God, and there is none else, and my people shall never again be put to shame. And it shall come to pass afterward, not after the disaster, afterwards, after all these things, if you relent, if you do what you're supposed to do, that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Whose sons and daughters? African sons and daughters? European sons and daughters? No. He is talking to Israel. He just told you that in verse number 27. You shall know that I'm in the midst of Israel. And it shall come to pass after that I'll pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons, audience of Joel. Your daughters, audience of Joel, they shall prophesy. Your old men, audience of Joel, they shall dream dreams. Your young men in Israel shall see visions. Even on the male and female servants in Israel, in those days I'll pour out my spirit, and I will show wonders in the heavens. Those are signs. And on the earth, so he's showing signs and wonders in heaven and earth. Heaven and earth is the temple. Heaven and earth is the leaders and the citizens. Heaven is the leaders, earth is the citizens. Blood and fire and columns of smoke, the sun shall be turned to darkness. He repeats it again. The moon to blood, before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes to Zion. He already started that at the beginning of the chapter. The day of the Lord is not coming to America, or to South America, or to Africa, or to Europe, or to Australia, or to the Far East. It's coming to Zion, Jerusalem, Mount Zion, the temple. And it shall come to pass that everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Where? When? From what? For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there will be those who escape. From what? What are they escaping? What are they being saved from? Well, they are being saved from the army that is coming. I mean, this is direct, explicit. Look, verse number 2. It's in verse number 2, right here. Like blackness, there is spread upon the mountains a great and powerful people. That's who they are being saved from. Their like has never been seen, nor will again. These are the people coming to establish and to execute the anger of the Lord. So he says in verse number 32, which is what is being quoted by Jesus and Peter. He says here, let's go back to verse number 32. He says, and it shall come to pass that everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved from this event. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there shall be those who escape, as the Lord has said, and among the survivors, there will be people who to survive, shall be those whom the Lord calls out of this event. So when you're reading Matthew 24 and Revelation chapter 6, and it tells you the time has come for this to happen, and Jesus tells you in Matthew 24 that it's going to happen within a generation, within the construct of Jerusalem and the temple, why would you turn that into some Western, American, British, African idea of, well, this is about to happen. Revelation is happening in our time. Nonsense. It is not. There is no such thing about revelation is happening in our future. Unless the Bible is just a blatant lie. Oh, how can you say that, Brother Steve? What does Revelation tell you? Often. This is the revelation of Jesus Christ, chapter 1 of Revelation 1:1. This is the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him, Jesus, to give his servants, so as to show them the things that are about to take place soon. That's the first sentence in the prophecy of Revelation. God has given Jesus Christ a revelation to give to his servants. And by the time we get to verse 9, John says, I, John, am the one who wrote this. So wait a minute. God, Son, Jesus, to the servants. John, the servant. John, one of the 12 apostles. John, who was standing there privately with Jesus at the Mount of Olives. In Matthew 24, John was one of the 4 men who came to Jesus. And they say to Jesus, Jesus, tell us plainly, when will these things be? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? So John writes in verse number 36 of Matthew 20. Matthew writes of that record, no one knows the day, not the angels of heaven, not even the Son. No one knows the day. But now the Son, who did not know the day in Matthew 24:36, comes to John, who was there with him. He had told John, I don't know the day. I can't tell you nothing about it. So John knows this. But now, at Patmos, Jesus appears to John and tells him, I now know the day. I now know when this is going to happen. It's going to happen soon. So now write. So Jesus appears to John 30 to 35 years later to tell him, I now know the day. Right. He's not speaking about a day that was in our day. The same John writes a letter, 1 John chapter 2, chapter 1 rather. Yeah, 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. Children, it is the last hour. How do we know it is the last hour? Because in Matthew, when I was there with Jesus at the Mount of Olives, he told us the sign of his coming within a generation was that false Christ would arise. Antichrist would arise. False prophets. Children, it is the last hour, John writes. And this is how we know it is the last hour. Many antichrists have already come. As you have heard, Antichrist is coming. Therefore, we know it is the last hour. He repeats. John, who was there with Jesus, when Jesus had said, I don't know the day or the hour, the same Jesus now is telling John, it's about to take place. It's about to roll out. Prepare the people. It's about to happen soon. Within the lifetime of the 7 churches. Because every one of the 7 churches in Revelation, they are told, I am coming in your lifetime. Every one of the 7 churches. He doesn't say he's going to come after 7 seasons of churches. He says he's going to come to every church. I'm coming in your lifetime, church. So how can somebody turn the 7 churches into 7 consecutive seasons when he's coming in the lifetime of every church? That's nonsense. Matsunyane asks, so all New Testament writings were concluded before 70 AD? Of course, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely, without a shadow of doubt. We know that Paul wrote all his letters before he died, and Paul writes nearly half of the New Testament, 13 letters, right? Without counting Hebrews. So we know the 13 letters of Paul were written before 66 AD. Paul was dead by 66 AD. So half of the New Testament is gone. Okay, let's add the book of Hebrews. The book of Hebrews was written around 67 AD. The writer of Hebrews says he is going to try and come with Timothy. Timothy was released from prison between 65 and 66 AD. We know that's when he's writing it. There's no doubt about those 14. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they all record Matthew 24. Well, not John. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they record Matthew 24 as a future event. And Matthew 24 is speaking about the destruction of Jerusalem. So now we have 4 more that are prophetic, which means because if Matthew was being written after 70 AD, then he would have said, and what Jesus had said came to pass. But he's writing it will happen before the end of the generation. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, take them out of that equation. So what do you have left with? You have Jude, which is attested to be before 70 AD. So now you're only left with John, the letters of John, Peter died by 64 AD. So we know 1 Peter, 2 Peter before 64 AD. So what do we have left? We have John and his letters. 1 John, 2nd, 3rd John. And John the Gospel and Revelation. If Jesus told his disciples in Matthew 24 that he was coming before the generation was over, and John is writing that Jesus is about to come in Revelation, can Revelation possibly be written after a generation is over? No, that would contradict the message of Jesus in the Gospels. So, evidence, internal evidence shows you all the books of the Bible were written before 70 AD, because 70 AD was the penultimate event of the fulfillment of prophecy. So yes. Is there a passage that explicitly says there are no more prophets or prophecies at present? Yes, there are no more prophets or prophecies of the old covenant. That's what it says. Because all prophets and prophecies were prophecies of the old covenant. All of them, including the prophecies of Jesus. Jesus was born in the old covenant. Paul was born in the old covenant. So they are all prophesying in the old covenant. So Micah 7, 1 Corinthians 13, they all say no more prophecies, no more prophets under the old covenant. So I'm trying to answer your question quite specifically as P3 Studio. There is no passage that I know of that says in the new covenant God will not have prophets or prophecies. He's only addressing the old covenant order, the first heaven and the first earth. But there is no scripture either that says that there will be prophets and prophecies under a new covenant. So that one just has to seek the Lord to give him clarity. Okay, what do we? Because definitely the Bible says there's no more prophets or prophecies per the old covenant. Per the old covenant. So when my wife dreams very specific things that are in the future, and then they happen exactly as she told me, I'm sorry, but I cannot sit here and say she didn't dream it, and that she didn't tell it to me, and that it happened exactly as she saw it, and there was no way she could have known it. There are people who want us to believe that and to acknowledge that. And there are times that I've been swayed to begin to think that, but I've just seen way too much. I just don't have the scriptures for it, because all the scriptures were written concerning the end of the old covenant. There are no scriptures that were written concerning the operations of the new heaven and new earth. We only have 2 chapters of the new heaven and new earth, and they don't give you details. All we know is that all the prophecies of the Old Testament were fulfilled. That we know.